Yeah, okay, so I should be caught up.
So let's get started. So yesterday we found all the sources.
I don't know if I could stay for the whole thing, but let's keep going.
Okay. So yesterday we found all the sources for shlichus, but you missed a very important word that I said over it. So I'm going to say it over for your benefit.
Oh, thank you.
The Gemara told us mitzvah boy Yosy mi b'shluchai. Since it says ha'ish mekadesh boy u'b'shluchai, we learn from there that it's better to do the Kiddushin by yourself than it is to use a shliach. Mitzvah boy Yosy mi b'shluchai. So there was a story with a Ber Zolti. One Shabbos afternoon, he was in the back of the Besmedrish, and there was a guest there, a bacher. He went over to him and he said, Shalom Aleichem. And it was Parshas Boy that week. And he asked the boy, what are you doing here? He says, no, we had an off Shabbos in Yeshiva, and I came to Toronto for the off Shabbos. He says, that's strange. Because if I remember correctly, when I was in Yeshiva, the off Shabbos was Shabbos Shira, Parshas Peshalach, not Parshas Boy. I think the reason why you came is because of mitzvah boy, Yosy mi b'shluchai.
Okay, a bearishism.
That was a bearishism, that's right. So getting back to the Gemara, so we had the Makor for Shlichus was V'shilcha, and that helps us for Kiddushin and Kiddushin. And we also had one of two psukim. If you hold like Rabbi Shmuel ben Karcha, then we learned from the pasuk of V'shachtu Oisei Kol Kaladas Yisrael by Pesach Mitzrayim that you have Shlichus by Kachim. And if you don't know like Rabbi Shmuel ben Karcha, then you'll know from the Yichulach Lahem Ish Shalabay Salabayis. That's where we know Shlichus by Kachim. And the Gemara Maskana is once I know Shlichus by Kachim, and I also know Shlichus by Gershon and Kiddushin, with a Memotzinu, I could learn to Truma. And that's how I know Shlichus by Truma. Even though the Gemara in the Hadmin had a pasuk of Gamatem l'Rabbi Shluchachem, at the end of the day, Gemara, the Maskana was that she used just to tell you that only a Yid could be a Shliach, to be Mafesh Trumas and Maishras for you, and not a Yid. And that it takes us up to the Hela Hadamar of Gittel, which is about 12 lines down on that Mem Bezum Arav. The Hadamar of Gittel Amarav. Minayin Shlucha Shaladim Kamoisai. Rav Gittel also was probing how do we know Shlucha Shaladim Kamoisai? Shinamar, because it says in the pasuk, V'nasi echad mimate. One nasi from each mate, and that's when the Nesiim were going to be getting the land on behalf of Klal Yisrael. V'nasi echad mimata. Take cholin chalas. Oh, thank you so much. Take cholin chalas haaretz. That's where we know that the Nesiim were zoicha, and they represented their shevet in exactly which portion of land to take and how to distribute it amongst their shevet. If it is bara, Frank the Gemara, how could Rav Gidel learn? You're asking me a question. Rav Gidel has another source for shlichus. Well, before you even get to your kasha, how is it possible that shlichus, so the question is, why did Rav Gidel lead his pasuk of shlichus? We already set it up so perfectly that we know shlichus b'kol terechula. This isn't shlichus. Let's think about it. There were many ketanim. Over there. So Rashi, there were many ketanim that were going to get a portion in Eretz Yisrael. How could the Nesiim possibly have been working with shlichus? The Kohen can't make a shliach. The Nesiim could not possibly have represented the ketanim through the shlichus. The gabe v'shilach v'shilcha ish ksiv ki yikach ish u'minay afinu le'lakot nois shliach. We know that a cotton cannot make a shliach. Ella, you know what was going on there with the Nesiim? Ella ki hada Rabba bar Afuna. It's working with Rabba bar Afuna. But Rashi Elahu lavlo so yishliach also. Rather, it's a different mechanism. It's the mechanism called Zachin La'odam Shaloi B'fanav. The Ketanim Kishaloi B'fanav Dam. Tanim as if they're not here. And therefore, the Nasi needs to take charge without them being appointed by the Ketanim. It's definitely a benefit to acquire a portion of Eretz Yisrael. That's why their chalukah that the Nesim did on behalf of the Ketanim were good. Where do we know about this mechanism that you could do something good on behalf of somebody even without being appointed? And that is the limud from Avgidol's pasuk, not shlichus. Frekti Gemara, v'tizbras chusi, who said it was so good? Who said what the Nasi was doing on behalf of these Ketanim was to their benefit? It's possible that some of the Ketanim were very unhappy with what the Nasi did on their behalf. There are some people who would rather have land high on a mountain, and the Nasi might give them land in a valley, and vice versa. So here the Nasi is being kind of land for these children with the mechanism of Zchia, yet it might not be Zchia at all. Zok to Gemara, a very big chiddush. The Ella Kedarava Barafuna. Damarava Barafuna Amarav Gidol Amarav. Minayin Liyasaim Shabo. Lachlik V'nichsevian. How do you know that if there are Yosy that are coming to split up the estate of their late father, Bezdin could set up an apotropos to be their agent to split up the land on their behalf. Lochov veliskois, whether it's damaging to them or whether it's beneficial to them. Frekt Gemara, lochov amai. Why would Bezdin appoint people to hurt these children? Ella lochov amai. Ella lochov almanas liskois. Of course, the intent of the apotropos is to make sure that the interests of the child is protected, and that's his goal. But not always does it work out. At the end of the negotiation, he might not get what's good. So because of that, he's heading out with the intent to do good, but the child will have to accept, for better or for worse, the result that was achieved for him by the apotropos. How do you know that works? By the Chalukas Haaretz, in fact, the Nasi was doing this on behalf of everybody, even Ketanim, using Schia. Not always was it a Schia. The Teretz is, since he was headed out to do his best to get everybody their best chalik, even if someone doesn't get what they really wanted, that's still going to be work with our Schia. Rashi Rashi, El Chedarova, Kaloimer, Loi Schos, Shaloi Befan of Gredasa, Ika Lamash Mimina Legedoilim. You're not just learning that you're doing a schia for Gedolim, pure schos. L'urinami the lektanim afilu chayva bo machmaschus rishoin bezin lasas land. Bezin can even do something if the result could possibly be chayv. Like in this case, the l'schusam benachlim, the l'zakoisam benachlim. Their main interest, their main concern was to be zoiche in a portion of Eretz Yisrael on behalf of the ketanim. Even though in certain cases this portion that they received might not have been beneficial to them, it might have hurt them, there might be someone who wasn't happy with the portion allotted to him. They cannot be chayzer. Therefore, we learned it works. If we know for sure that it's going to be to their detriment, why would we Vidavka set up an purpose to hurt them? We're setting up these opportunities to help them, but not always do they win. But if they don't succeed and they don't do well and then they'll have to accept the results. How do we know it? We know it from Nasi Echad, in fact, by the Nesiim being kind of the land, it was a schus on the chayv, kedamin, like we said, the kedanichale, bahachi, kedamin. So Tosfos asks a very important question, a very important question. We just learned this in Gittin. The Brisa actually says the opposite, that they're not Rishoyin lochav v'liskos. Upar chasam liskos amayloi. So the Gemara asked, if you're beneficial to them, why can't that person do benefit? They can't do something, even with a good intention, if it's possible that bad will come out of it. So it's a steer from our sugya that says that they are doing good for them, even if it leads to bad. Yet in Gittin it says they can. B'shleimer, two different cases. There it's speaking where other creditors are coming to make a claim of the estate. There, they're not allowed to fight the case. You push the case off until these children become adults. Because the Shema lo yutvom kishem gedolim. Maybe by the time they become adults, the creditors will give up on it already. And ultimately, there'll be a benefit to the Yosayim. Here we're talking about where they're making a claim against somebody else. Kihacha, the Chalukah de Arkayis, right? But a Chalukah Arkayis, we're getting something for them. It's not like we're defending them. We're in offense. We're the plaintiffs. The Chigadli Nami Trichen Lachloik. They're going to need to get a chelik in the land. So when there's no benefit in defending the case, because you can push it off, you only have to lose. You only have to lose. There, you wouldn't allow the protopus to get involved. But if there's an opportunity to benefit, then of course we'll let the protopus do the job. And sometimes it doesn't always work. Sometimes it doesn't always work. Okay. Zok tehelu gemor vayter. Omar Rab Nachman Omar Shmuel. Yisoymim shabo lachlik v'nichsei abi. Yisoymim that came.
Isn't this done by a gyro? The whole thing is done by a gyro. Al pi Hashem, or it. So whether they're ketanim or gedolim, it would come out exactly the same. And who says this thing could be challenged? Whether they're ketanim or gedolim.
Well, if you're doing something, Vitor is chiyah for me, and you don't have status to do it, so then your gyro won't be able to impact me.
That's following.
They're still entering into a gyro. And there's two components here. There's the component where each Nazi is getting the chelik for a shal shevet. Could be there, the Nazi doesn't even have say. But then the Nazi internally has to do a distribution internally in a shevet. So he could include me in a gyro that might be to my detriment, even if it's a gyro.
Yeah, but even if he was a gadol, you get the same gyro. It would come out exactly the same. And
yeah,
would he be allowed to
if he's
challenge?
a gadol, he makes a shliach. If he's a gadol, he can work with our shlichus. And if I make somebody a shliach, it works to my benefit and to my detriment. But schia only works to my benefit.
Okay.
But we're going to see a little bit about gyro, but I'm not sure if it's talking about nachlas arts. We'll look at this Tosfos that talks about gyro here in a second. So Yisayim Shabo Lachlik B'Nichsei Aviyah. Bezdin Ma'amidim Lam Apotropos. Bezdin set up an apotropos Uvorim Lam Chelik Yafa, and they pick out a good piece for each one. V'Migdilu Rashi's Chelik Yafa means L'Chol Echad Yafa Lazav Yafa Lazav. Everyone picks out what's best for them. V'Migdilu, but nevertheless, if they become adults, Yichaylim Limchos. They could throw it all away, and they could say, we don't want the deal that the apotropos made. That's what Reb Nachman said in the name of Shmuel. But Reb Nachman Didei Amar, Reb Nachman argued with Shmuel, and he said in Megdilu, because then the whole thing is a joke. You're making a joke out of the koyach bezdin. The bezdin of a koyach to be mammon apotropos, it has teeth. So let's have a look at these two Tosfos. They're quite interesting. Yisayim Shabo, I'm Rebbeinu Tam, the Dalka Shabo. Only if they ask that they wanted to split up the estate, only then will Bezdin get involved and create an apotropos. What if one of the children said, no, I don't want to split up, I want to wait till we become adults? Ein lahabed apotropos lachloit b'akrach. Umechaluka sa'aretz ein lahabi raya. You can't bring a riot that over there they did it no matter what. Nobody had the right to protest. That couldn't have consented. The shiny hosam al piadibur. That was al piadibur, and therefore, even though nowadays, if there was any such scenario like by Yosoimim, they wouldn't be able to be maimed and apotropos, even if one of the children were protesting. There, al piadibur, it was done, which also really answers David's question as well. There, it's not so. It doesn't fit into the standard case of Schia because there was the Dibur, there was the Urim Tumim, like David mentioned, there was a Goyrel, so there's less wiggle room. When we call Shemayah Per Kalmona, that be Kohen Shemeis, V'niach Ishim Uberes, V'avodim. A Kohen died and he left a wife who was pregnant and Avodim. Now Avodim, a Nevet Kanani can eat Truma because he's the Kenyan Kasboy of the Kohen. The problem is an Eved cannot eat Truma if he's the Kenyan Kasboy of a fetus. This woman is pregnant. We don't know if it's a male or a female. The Kamer Halsam, if all of the children are male, then the avodim can continue to eat. The imishum chelaka uber, what about the uber appears to shema yimta uber zachar? The kaimelon yilud Michael she'ena yilud ena Michael. So what are you going to do there? Avdinon lahuta kanta kirab nachman domer ab nachman or Shmuel yisayim shabo lachlik. So you see me komakam shminim hasam the afal gav sho echot cotton biyoser. Even though you have a fetus, someone who's not capable of giving consent, so you don't have a bow, they're not asking their apotropson to get involved to make the chalukah, because clearly any little fetus cannot give consent. Nevertheless, Avdinon lutekadek Rav Nachman b'Shmuel Shem Shabbat Mikolmak Sheminim Hasam the afal gav shecha cotton biyoser the ein boy das li shoel im roitz lachlak im loy dum yudu ober davdinon letkant v'hakamin davka bo. Right, our Gemara says Yisayim Shabo, they have to all be consenting. Clearly, you see, even without consent, you could do it. The Shemish Loimer doesn't takani l'uber. There, it's the schus for the uber even without his consent. Shehemis Allah chelkoi bekach to avodim loichlum betruma. It's better for everybody that the avodim in the estate should be able to eat truma because it's cheaper. So it'll ultimately save the entire estate money. Chaim, if that's full of coffee, it might spill over. Okay. No, I was just talking about. I was ready to spill it. There anyway, you wouldn't know if someone's moicher that you wouldn't do it. There's silence. You don't have consent, but you don't have a protest either. And here's Boilam Mechelek Yof. The Loshen Boyerin, Haymadaktikri, since the Loshen is that they can pick, that means the apotropson have authority to make decisions. It's not even with a girl. They will actually the apotropson will negotiate with each other. Every child gets their own apotropos, and now they're negotiating. Because the ma breda, what do you mean they choose? There's no choosing. The girl dictates. And he would say, the Re would say, girl, the apotropos has full authorization to make a deal with the other ones. If the Yisayim were adults, they wouldn't make a girl. They would work it out between themselves. Who gets what? If there was a piece of property that couldn't be split, so you'll have to get the whole property and I'll have to get something connected. Nami nearly. If it's a it's something that you can't really split. They're literally like Yisayim themselves. They have a lot of power. It's totally in their das, in their representation. But in a question of God Igud, the Mahanya Chalukas have a triple Kamri, but Lo Yuchlu Limchosh Kishiyigdu. According to Reb Nachman, they would not be able to break that deal later on. But Reb Nachman says, Kain Ma Koyach Beziyov. But Reb Tam argues, Reb Tam Afarish, Dani Dafke Begoyro. The only authorization that these apotropsim have is to make a goyrel. The chitrichos alahatel goyrelois, the gam tzarch shu is best. You need everything. The dafka v'davar l'shayach be'goyde ilgud. Dafka is something that doesn't have goyde ilgud. Could you split it up? Uvoirin shayach shaper be'goyrel. So the Re said that the lashon boirin doesn't make sense by a goyrel because by a goyrel it's all dictated and you don't need them to pick anything. Zok the Rebbeinu Tam no. Boirin makes sense even when there's a goyrel. Why? If there's 3 fields, they're not going to split each field into 3 portions if there's 3 assignments. What they're going to do is you'll take field A, I'll take field B, and he'll take field C. That still needs some type of deal, because who's going to take field A? Who's going to take field B? The Chamin Breris. If there's windows, the shalomis, the shaykh lemishaper chelik yofa, which will hide the re the pierce on town. So at the end of the day, the apotropsim do not have a free hand to do anything. Yes, they do have some authority, but the bulk of the chalukah still needs to be done with a shumas bezdin and with a girl. Gevaltik. So now we have this machlokes when bezdin sets up apotropsim. Can the kids just throw it all away if they don't like it when they become adults? Or is there this concept of ma koich bezdin? But none we learned. Shuma de yonim shepichsu shtos ayosiru shtos. The bezdin made an assessment. Sheshamu nifsei loiva lamalva shaloiv ifnei loiva. There was a loiva that defaulted on the loan, and bezdin allowed the malva, even though the loiva wasn't around, to seize assets. Now, he can't just seize assets. He's only allowed to seize assets that will be paying for the fund. So they had to assess, let's say, property that the loiva owned to be the exact amount of the chayiv. Or even if the loiva was around, because Mishum the loiva have a tzayis dina, because the loiva refused to listen to Bezdin to pay up. So the halach is, what if Bezdin made a mistake of a 6th mechwen bottle? Their sale is bottle. No, their sale is kaim, even though they underestimated or overestimated by 1/6, because imkain ma koich bezin. Once again, if Bezin's transactions don't have teeth, then it's a joke.
This is a mistake.
I'm sorry.
This is a mistake. It's a little different.
And that distinction is made. V'amar Rav Huna bar Chidna, Amar Rab Nachman. Halacha k'divrei chacham, and Rav Huna bar China, in the name of Rav Nachman, passing like the chachamim, that you don't say ma koich bezin yafa, you say mechon bot. So it's fair because Rav Nachman a minute ago said by an apotropos came ma koich bezin yafa. Here it's not exactly an apotropos, but it's a case where Bezdin got involved to pass on something, and here Rav Nachman says you're mevatel the beka. So it's more loy kasher. It's not fair. Why? The tai and the lighter. If they made a mistake, sure, you can be chayzer, and that's where Nachman holds your chayzer over here. But in the case of the assignment, there was no mistake done. The kid didn't like what they did, but that doesn't mean there's a mistake done. There you say ma koich bezin. Or you could say if there was no mistake made by the kids, so what exactly is the problem? Everything's perfect. They're still preferences. Which means if you got property with southern exposure, now you have northern exposure. You know why? Unbeknownst to the apotropos, I had a piece of land there. I want contingent property. I don't want to have broken pieces here and there. So therefore, it would have been better for me to have the northern portion. So there, Rab Nachman would hold, you say, ma koich bezin yof. Okay? Tosfos has another suggestion. Hadutol loito, who adin the matzla memer, hadutol b'shtus, v'hadutol b'pachas b'shtus. If you remember the case that we had with the Shuma the Yonim, they made a mistake of exactly 1/6, right? So if it's exactly a 6, then you'll say, or forget it. If it's more than the 6, then you'll say that that it's bottle, even though the Bryce sort of says b'shtus, but Toshis wants to say maybe the Gemara could have made that distinction. That's 6 or more. Okay, gewaltig. Amr of Nachman. Ha'achan shecholkum. Brothers that split, harehen kalakuchas. They're like lakuchas. Now, when you buy something from somebody, depending on how off the assessment is, the mekach could sometimes be bottled. And therefore, pachas mishtos, if we were off on our assessment less than a sixth, nikna mekach, the mekach works and there's no recourse. Yes or shtos, if we're off by more than a sixth, bottle mekach, the whole deal is off. Shtos, if it's exactly 1/6 off, then kana, the split, a sale remains intact, but umaschur oino, the oino has to be returned. Omer Rava, Zokt Rava, Had Amr, that we say, Had Amrat, that you said, Pachas Mishtos, Nikna Mekach, Loy Amrin El Loy Shavishli. That only works if the two brothers made the deal on their own. But if they appointed a shliach to represent them, Avol Shavi Shliach, Amar, the victim of the deficiency, can say, when I appointed you as a shliach, I only gave you the power to do something that's to my benefit, not to mess me up. And therefore, the whole shlichus is bottled. Yes, bottle mekach, that you say if it was more than just it's bottle, that's only if he didn't say that nefligan b'shuma de bedina, that if that's only if they say that we're not going to follow the rules of best, we're not going to treat our deal as if Bezdin did the deal. Aval Amar niflag b'shuma de bedina, but if they said that our split should have the same strength and status as a Bezdin, mechran kayim, because that nan shuma de yodim shepis tushtos ayishir shtos machran botol. And Reb Shimon ben Gamliel are in Machran Kayim, and he's going with Machran Kayim. So Rashi speaks out, and we'll see Rashi inside. The Rava obviously is passing over here that not like Reb Nachman, who said that by Shuma Diyonim you say Machran Bato, rather he's passing like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel here, who says Machran Kayim. Let's see Rashi. V'hadam yes al shos batal mekach loyamin loyamin niflag b'shua devedina. Hadam yes al shos batal chaluka legamrei loyamin el shlehisnu mitchila. That's only if they didn't do it with the method of best. What if when they made a deal, they said, listen, however we split it is our method. But we're accepting this, both parties are signing on to accepting that we're going to give it the same validity and strength as if Bezdin did it. So then I feel Yosy just mochin kai. Then even if there was a bigger mistake than 1/6, the mecha would still be kaim. The kaim belonged to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, because we're working with Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Davar mechem kaim, because if not, there's the svara of imkein makoyach Bezdin yof. From Mesech Skubas parakoman zoyis v'loy svir le'Rava hadam Reb Nachman le'il alacha de Reb Chama. Clearly, Rava is going to be arguing on Reb Nachman, who said that by Shumas Bezdin, the Shuma is going to be bought. And then we have one more condition. Yehad Amrit. That we said that if the offset was just exactly a shtus, the deal remains, but the person who received more has to pay back. This rule only applies by metalton if they're splitting up metalton. But if they're splitting up property, when it comes to karka, there's no oino at all. Let's see Rashi. The Torah, when it talks about I know, is referring to metalton. It says I kona miyara misecha. Miyara misecha automatically means something that's handed over. It cannot be stationary. It's not karka. Al toinu. That's where it says al toinu shemisa idabar nikna miyad liyah. And even with a karka le'amra, ela the polag be'iluya. Even by karka, we don't say that it's not doesn't go back because there's no I know by karka. When do we say there's no I know by karka and it doesn't go back and the deal remains as it is? When they split up the land, it was based on the value. I took $100,000 worth of property, and you took $100,000 worth of property. And if there's a mistake, and you really got 105,000, 110,000, that's too bad for me because they didn't know the coins. But what if that's not how we split it up? We had a property that it was uniform and it was 50 by 100, and I was going to take 50 by 50, and you were going to take 50 by 50, and we measure wrong. That's already a mistake. That clearly they didn't accept. That always goes back. Let's see Rashi Biluya. So they didn't do it with a measuring tape. Everyone took the same size land in each grade. They just assessed the value of the property, where each took $100,000 worth of property. But if it was based on the measurement, chayzer, noise, that's not like a regular no, the Kamalan Bazov, Pachas Mashtus Machal Anish. The Asam ain't Kolodum Yachal with Tamtam Adamim. It's impossible to make a perfect assessment on the value of a property. So therefore, you say people are mochel if it's a little off. No one's going to say if we measure wrong, it's good enough. If we made a mistake on the value a little bit, okay, but I'm supposed to get 50 by 100, I'm going to be makar. So these are all the exceptions to the rules of when it works out that way.
What's the touch with the mishchusim?
Mishchusim is a string. I think that was their version of a measuring tape. Right? Okay.
You take the string, you measure.
There's so many interesting choices over here. Okay, let's go back there. That we learned. So now we're getting into a whole new halacha. So we got into halacha of shlichus. We got into the halacha of schia when it's chos hamanas lochav, and if Bezin does it, if you say makar, it's Bezin yafeh. And now we're getting to shlichus to dvarvei. If someone sends a fire, he gives him a lit match to a cheresh shoyta v'katan, and this cheresh shoyta v'katan ignites something and causes a disaster. Potter medina adam v'chayev medina shemayim. Medina adam is potter. He didn't do anything wrong, but he's chayev medina shemayim because he caused severe damage to another person. But shilach biat pikeach. What if he gave a fire? He gave a lit torch to a pikeach, a man of sound mind, and the man of sound mind lights something on fire. Pikeach chayev. The pikeach is chayev, and of course not the mishalayach. Unlike in secular law where there's liability, anybody who came into contact with from Sheshes Shemei Bereshis, that's not how it works in Torah law. The person who actually did it, he is responsible. It's very similar to the gas code. The last licensed gas fitter that was on site is fully responsible for anything that happens, even though there was a lot of negligence prior to that. So that works like the Din Torah. The gas code is Din Torah, at least in that respect. Well, I hope Avigdor agrees.
That's why I didn't call him back. I hope.
Yeah, you had personal experience. Why? If I sent fire with a pikeach and I told him take this, so why am I not chayiv? I was the one who sent him. He's doing it on behalf of me. I guess it must be where I told him to ignite it. The reason why it doesn't work there is because ain't shlich l'dvaravera. Darmina, we say divrei arav and divrei talmud divrei mishaymin. This guy was a pikeach. If I tell him to burn down the house, he shouldn't be listening to me. He should be listening to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So it's not a shlichus. Let's see Rashi. Ain't shlich chashav shlich l'dvaravera to yischayev shalchoi ela areyu ka'oisa me'ev. Gewaltig. Zog to Gemara. V'atanan. I believe the Bach changes this as a Mishnah. V'atanan. This is when it comes to the halacha of Me'ilah. The halacha of Me'ilah is as follows. Let's see Rashi. Gabe hektishkai. It's referring to hektish. Shahayu etlei mois hektish. Somebody had in his possession money of hektish. V'tav v'savar shein shalchud. And he thought that this was chulun money, and he wanted to buy an animal with it. He wanted to buy a suit. And he gave it to a shliach, and he said, Yankel, do me a favor. Take this $500, buy for me a jacket in Marcy's clothing. Likach bahen chaluk. V'kana behen talis, and he went and he bought on behalf of the Mishaleach. There the halach is shliach mol v'lo yasholchai. The shliach is moil and not the Mishaleach. Shebedavar ze'ein shlucha, because he's not my shliach to do an avera. But not shliach shliach shlichusay shliach mol. But if he didn't do shlichusay, I'm sorry, I read it wrong. If he didn't do shlichusay, I said him to buy a chaluk, and he didn't buy a chaluk. I told him to buy a chaluk, and he bought a talis. So I'm not sure. Maybe a chaluk is a shirt, and he bought a jacket. He didn't buy what I asked him. So if you didn't buy what I asked you to, you didn't do my shlichus. You went, you took my shlichus, and you bought something with it. It's your problem. But other shlichus. But if you bought me what I asked you to, then balabayit tomorrow. Correct the Gemara based on what you said. Ki other shlichus the balabayis miyamal. But based on your argument earlier that the pikeach, the perpetrator, is the one who's chayiv and not the one who sent him, why not? Am I? Nema ein shlich levarver. You should say ein shlich levarver. Zok Rashi. Avol motah shlichusay balabayis mo maybe korban milah. So why is it we know there's a rule in shlich levarver, and that's why when I sent with a pikeach, I'm not chayiv for what he did. So why am I chayiv for what he did by me? Because by Me'ilah there's a special pasuk. The Yafa chet mitrum. We learned the word chet from Truma. Now by Truma we know that there is a din shlichus. Chet mitruma. Leroiv devera devareah he lemuda mitruma. Like I mean, many things of Me'ilah we learn out of Truma. The Maseches Me'ilah tzevacha v'chata b'shkoga b'kache Hashem. That's what it says by Kachem by Me'ilah. Uchtziv b'truma ba'oichle b'shoigeg. When the Torah talks about someone who ate Truma. So we learn ma truma mashver shliach af meila mashver shliach laramasa. Right, you can make a shliach to be meirim truma, so to you your shlichos legabe meila. Practically more of a nailef mina. So oibazoi, once you have a precedent that yesh shliach ledvar veir by meila, so why don't you say b'chalat harakula yesh shliach ledvar veir? Tomorrow, Mishum Dava Me'ilah Ushlichas Yad, because Me'ilah and Shlichas Yad are two psukim that could have learned one from the other, yet the Torah went out of its way to tell us by Me'ilah through the Chet, and by Shlichas Yad to tell us that Yesh Shlich L'Barvera, so we have a little bit of time, so there's a very important Tosfos over here, because Tosfos asks a Gavaltic Akash. What is the whole reason why we're saying that Ein shlich levarver. Divrei Rav, v'divrei Talmud, divrei Mishaymin. Correct Tosfos, Me'ilah, you're only over if you're shoygeg. So how could I tell a guy divrei Rav, divrei Talmud, divrei Mishaymin? He doesn't know it's Me'ilah. If he would have known, if he knows, remember like a tiny that. So that's a Tosfos. Amai model, Nema ein shlich levarver, Tema, v'al korchem ma'ir b'shoygeg. Me'ilah is only over Me'ilah that you have to bring the Nasham Me'ilah. You have to bring a carbon and you have to pay a chaimish. Even made it like a meila. Then meila b'mezid. So im kain yesh shlich levarver. So then not svara. Why is the Gemara asking from meila? Why is meila yesh shlich levarver? By meila you don't have to serve divrei Rav. The l'shayich l'neimer divrei Rav and divrei Talmud divrei Mishaymin. Even shu chayik. Dachinami mashma perek meruba. That's how it's mashma in perek meruba. The Gemara harei shaganav tle min ha'eder. If someone stole a tle from the eder, the ganav. The Omar, and he told the Kohen, let me just look at the hay. The Omar le Balchoiv, and he told his Balchoiv, Toil Tla Zeh Shushali. I guess the Ganav owed money, so he told the Balchoiv, here, take this Tla that he stole. Oy Nosnu le Kohen le B'charish B'noi, or he gave it to the Kohen because he owed the Kohen 5 slayim. The Herloi B'tla Shal Chaveroi, and he said, here, take that Tla, which means it wasn't his Tla, he was paying his Chayv Yenem's Tla. And it was really hectic. The Gemara fears the Miyach. I'm sorry, this is not a question of hectic. This is a question of Geneva. The Miyach, since I didn't take the tle myself and give it to the Kohen, I just told the Kohen, go take that. It's mine. Is the moment the Kohen took the tle from the Shus Bailam, Nischayev Aganev, the Mashiach HaKohen. The Ganev is Chayev with the Mashiach of the Kohen. So you see clearly there, you said Shlich L'Darver. Why? Because there's no svara of divrei Rav and divrei Talmud, because the Kohen had no idea that this was in fact somebody else's property. So you see that when you don't have a svara of divrei Rav and divrei Talmud, everybody agrees that Jay Shlich L'Barver. So what's Bechlal the Gemara's kasha from Meila, which is Shoigit. The Hikshari Hasam, the Re asks over there, Amai Chayiv Haganav. Why is the Ganav Chayiv name and Shliach L'Varveira? V'tiritz, and the Re answers over there, Kibin Sheina Koyin Yodea, Shubam Migneva, Lo Shaykh L'Meimer Divrei Mishon. So Ebezoi, what's the catch over here from Meila? By Marie, the Hachamairi, here the halacha is afilu the nizker ashliach ka'amar demo balabais. Even if the shliach comes at the last second that this is moishal hektish, we still say that the balabais is mo. So there is a svar of divrei rav. V'hash the parach hamaymo name and shliach l'darveira the divrei rav the divrei talmud divrei mishan. So in fact the chiddush by meila is that even if the shliach knows at the end that it's hektish, it's still going to be a meila. You're going to ask, even though the shliach knows, so maybe by the shliach it's amazing, but by the balabayis it's still a shoygit. Therefore, the niskar shliach mo balabayis the much meila, the tani niskar balabayis, the niskar shliach, hashliach mo. Why? Because the balabayis can't be moil, by him it's amazing already. The shliach is the only one that can be moil. Niskar shneim, then cheveni mo. The person who took it is moil. But Tam lefi the meila enoy elo b'shoyk. Meila only applies b'shoyk in the preachers. Lefichach mol oisay shelo nisker. The guy who gets left holding the bag is the guy who didn't know about it. Everybody who knew about Alder Shoyim are moil, and the poor innocent guy, he's the guy who gets stuck holding the bag. Or you can say he's the guy who's zoichet to the kapara of Hasham Elois. The others are going to have other problems. Void the shenisker mezidu. The person who remembered is amazing. The kolmakim davkim nisku shneim. So therefore, the balabais cannot say, the balabais would be able to say divrei rav and divrei talmud because the shliach knew. Nevertheless, from chet we learn that yesh shliach with var aveir. So zok to Gemara, why don't you export this l'chol kula? Because meila and shlichas yad shneksub mabamkech. So meila had amran. We just did meila, but where do you see shlichas yad? Shlichas yad mahu the Tanya.
The shlichus yad is shlichus right?
Well, I'm telling somebody to be koder to take Yenim's. I'm watching it, and you go take Yenim's up. So let's see the story. The Tanya I'll call Dvar Pesha. It says I'll call Dvar Pesha. We could look into I'll call Dvar Pesha. I'll shor I'll chamor I'll sell I'll salma I'll call Aveda. Asher yomer kiyuzeh that the shomers that kiyuzeh. He has to pay kefa. Okay. We learn if it turns out that there was no ganav found because the shomer himself ganvai v'nikar balabais.
So it means shlichus that means push it when the shomer itself makes shlichus.
Correct, but we're going to say the shomer could make shlichus out through a shliach. That's what we're going to discuss. The Tanya called Dvar Pesha. What do you learn from our called Dvar Pesha? L'chayv al machshava k'maisa. That if the shomer just thinks that I'm going to take it, that's enough to be mechayiv him for shlichus yad. He's now mechayiv anointing, even though up until now he was a shomer phenom. Once he's a shaloi chad, he's chayiv anointing.
Yesterday we learned that hektish can noch.
That's right. So shlichus yad you can also learn from. We still learn einei chayiv ad sheyishlalach bo yad. So you don't learn from Akol Var Pesha that machshava works because you actually have to take it. It's never Moshalach Yodai. The words of the pasuk is Moshalach Yodai. You have to do it. So what are you going to do with those words of Akol Var Pesha if you don't learn like me that even a machshava will deprive you? What are you going to do with the pasuk that I'm quoting, where it says Moshalach Yodai? What are you going to learn out of Akol Var Pesha? Here's our punchline. Sheyachal, I would have thought. I would only know that how does the shomer violate shlichus yad and now become a chiyuv anointing as if he himself took the object. But Amar la'abdoi u'l'shluchem minayin. What if he instructed someone else to take that object for him? How do you know that the shomer is also chayiv al shlichus yad because yesh shliach l'dvar ve'ah? Tabud loymer al kol dvar pesha. So according to Beis Hillel, we have a second place where the Torah teaches us yesh shliach l'dvar ve'ah, which is shnei ksuvim about. Let's see Rashi. Told Pesha, Vosar im l'sholach yadik sib l'chayav al machshava el adibur. Jim Omar Aithosha l'shloich yad b'bikoden. If you merely thought to make shlichas yad, harehu b'shusam yishashav ve'elach l'schayav b'chointin. It's yalaboy. He's b'chuyev Afilu have a shomer chinam. Even if this shomer was only shomer chinam, once he shaleich yad, he's chayav anointing. So now he's chayav in point.
So Basil learned a lot from that.
By shlichus yad. That's right. So now you have snake suba bam kach. So hanichel beisilo. Okay, according to Basil, you have snake suba bam kach. Elo beishamai the mukil haykov machshava kemaisa. Are you going to tell me that according to beishamai, yesh shlich lebarvera nelef minay? Let's learn from shlichus yad. Let's learn from Me'ila l'chalatar kula that yesh shlich lebarvera. The Gemara no. Should that be Me'ila fichu mechira snake suba bam kach. Allah Mila and Allah that Tavach Macham and Shalom Dal Behei, that's also Shnik Shema Bam Gechad, because that works for the Shliach as well from Z, because Shnik Shema Bam Gechad Emalam. Me'ila Hada Marid. Me'ila we already learned. Tvicha Mechira Mai, where do you find that Tvicha Mechira works for Shlichas? Amakrav Tavcha. We're comparing the act of Tvicha, which is a solo act, to the act of Mechira, which can never be done alone. You always need a participant. Just like mechira has to be done through somebody else, you need a purchaser. So too tvicha you can do through a shliach. As Rashi tells us, ma mechira enim eskayemis el aidei acher haganav moicher al lekeach lekeach. Af tvicha avidu tovcha shliach deschayv haganav v'tashlume dalid vehei. So therefore you have shnei ksuba bam kechod, sai according to Bishamai, sai according to Basil. Therefore, ein shlich l'varvera, except for the two cases of Beishamai, which are me'ila tzich mechira, or Beisilo me'ila and shlichus yad. Okay, let's stop here, and we will be mamshech tomorrow at 4:00. These are major Weltsugs. What's that? Hat mit Nisif.